Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. I have a real treat for you today, an incredible pair of musicians who happen to be twin brothers from my old stomping grounds of St. Louis, Missouri. These talented twins have been performing jazz music together for the last 46 years, and believe it or not, they still like each other. Will you please welcome Dwayne and Dwight Bosman, the Bosman Twins. Gentlemen, welcome aboard.
Well,
welcome.
hello, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
How are you, Rick?
I am thrilled to have you guys on the show. When I first found out about you guys, I'm going, I got to get these guys on the show. One, I love jazz music, and one, and I've lived in St. Louis for 22 years, so I know we have a lot of commonalities, a lot of places that you've played that I probably knew. But first off, I want to say thank you for blessing the St. Louis music scene with your incredible jazz music, and of course, thank you for blessing the world with your music as well. When did you guys realize that you had this skill?
Well, we started at age 10, and we asked our father to teach us, who was a professional musician and played with big bands, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Earl Father Hines.
Whoa, those are some names that I know and everybody knows. My goodness.
George Hudson Big Band. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but George Hudson had a very big band here that was very popular also. And in fact, it was suggested that Dizzy Gillespie come and pick up the band. It was either Dizzy or Cab, but he got sidetracked and went somewhere else and got another band. So anyway, but that was our early influences, and that we were inspired by our dad to get into music. Ask him to teach us.
And the first thing you learned, was it clarinet?
Clarinet was my first instrument. Wayne, yours?
I started on flute. In fact, that's my principal instrument.
Oh, very good. Very good. Oh, early jazz influences, guys. Obviously, you just mentioned quite a few right there. Any particular one stand out that you actually tried to pattern yourself after?
Well, I didn't try to pattern myself after because we were taught individuality.
Okay.
My strongest and earliest influence is our dad himself, Lloyd A. Smith.
Uh-huh.
And then there were many others along the way. Dwayne, would you care to get into that?
Well, you already said it's our father, but also in the area we had Willie Aikens, his influence, Oliver Sane.
Oliver Sane, I know that name, boy. I know that name for sure.
Well, that's where a lot of that soul,
yeah,
right there, Oliver Sane. And he was really good people and good friends of ours and a mentor as well.
All right. And now here's the thing I kind of teased a little bit when we started talking was the fact that you actually appeared on my show in 2001 and didn't even know it. We have a mutual friend, the late great Fontella Bass.
Right.
I had her on my original show in 2001. She had an album called Travelin', and you two guys played on it. And so welcome back to my show.
Well, thank you. It feels great being back.
Rick, my pleasure.
22 years later.
It's just such a wonderful musical icon. What do you remember in those days of working with her?
A lot of fun times, just a lot of fun on the road because a lot of things would happen unexpected. And so the musicians would just have a laugh. And then on birthdays, they always pied somebody for their birthday. You got pied.
A lot of times our birthday is July 29th. And so I can remember being like it in Europe. And the whole day you're worried about not getting a pie in your face.
Oh my
So you're
goodness.
trying to be careful, trying to lock yourself in your room and only go certain places. But they always seem to catch you. One time they caught me right as we were getting ready to go out on stage.
Oh my goodness.
And it was outdoor with festival in France. And it was
funny.
Killer.
No, she's on the St. Louis Walk of Fame on the Del Mar Loop. We need to get you guys on there too. What do we see about the voting? Good stuff right there. The first song we're going to feature is the title cut from the 2015 album called When Lions Roar. Can you explain the shifts and turns of the dynamics of the tune and also maybe the backstory?
Okay, I can. Basically, my wife kind of gave me the idea. Basically, Dwight and I are Leos.
Oh, so I'm a Leo also. Very good.
Okay, so with Leo the lion.
All right.
And in the lion family, you have the male and the female. Well, the male is the dominant, and the ferocious one, but he does absolutely nothing. He lays around and just takes it easy. The female lion, she takes care of the whole herd, and she goes out, get food for them. She does everything. However, when the young lions attempt to take over the male other lions from elsewhere or within their own pride, they will challenge the male lion, the dominant one, and that he must represent them 100%. So he's got to take care of his whole family and make sure they don't take over his kingdom, because if they do, they'll run him off. So he's all calm and everything. And when lions roar, you see the music is mellow, kind of swing, groove. And then when things kind of start happening, it starts getting more exciting and ferocious. And then it gets out there, we go extra avant-garde, kind of like it just haywire. And that's when the lion is protecting and doing his thing.
Awesome. Very good.
So that's what When Lions Roar is all about.
Dwayne wrote When Lions Roar, and I think you did a very fine job on that.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to feature that song right now on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Great song right there, When Lions Roar, from today's guest, the Bosman Twins. Now, here's one question I always ask musicians who do a lot of instrumentals. When time comes for a song title, it's easy for a lyricist to basically just use the hook or the chorus of the song. But since the majority of your songs are instrumentals, where do the song titles come from? Is it a feel or an emotion or just something within the song that stands out?
It can be a feel or emotion, and then sometimes it can just be close your eyes and whatever comes to mind, and that's it. For instance, we have a tune on the album called Pootie. And then people always ask me, where did I get the name Pootie? Uh-huh. And I was closing my eyes. And I don't know. I just thought Hootie, and that was it.
Well, there you go. Now you know, folks. That's where these song titles come from. You guys being twins, and of course, musicians. There's that twin gene that everyone talks about. Can you basically start a song, Dwight, and then Dwayne finish it up or something like that because you have that same twin gene, or can you read each other musically?
We do both. Actually, we used to do more of, and we're going to get back into it a little more of, improvisation, just making up a tune on the spot. Mm-hmm. So we can do that as we go along. But additionally, though, we complement each other in our playing because we've been accustomed to playing together so long. It's kind of innate at some points. And so
Rick, it's a natural thing. Uh-huh. It's spontaneous. And I guess that's because of the twin thing, as well as being together so long, mm-hmm. playing music together. We're on one accord. Sometimes even one of us makes a mistake, then the other one makes the same mistake at the same time. But we have excellent musicians who know how to regroup. And sometimes a mistake can turn off into something very, very positive.
Awesome. Very good. Now, a question, I'm just going to throw this in here. Dwight, what's the best characteristic of your brother Dwayne? And Dwayne, what's the best characteristic of your brother Dwight?
You can go first.
Well, the best characteristic of him, Dwayne, is that he's a cheap imitation of me.
That might be the best answer to any question I've had this year.
Well, you can see there's a difference. Our personalities, we're similar, but they're different. And we've been taught to be different. Mm-hmm. So even though we play the various instruments, we have a completely different sound, my sound versus Dwight's sound, but yet they correlate and they coincide with each other, because if they were the same, it would be monotonous. So they complement each other, like Dwight says. And for that reason, it creates a certain harmony, unity there within the music that's profound and it's natural.
Awesome. Very good. We're going to feature another song from their album. This is one that's actually a spoken piece and features a little more depth to their family because it honors your father, and it was written by your sister, Cheryl D.S. Walker, called My Daddy Was a Horn Player. Can you tell us the story on this one, guys?
Yeah, this is a spoken word piece. Mm-hmm. And Cheryl actually wrote the spoken word. She's a poet, and she's very, very good, and we're really proud of her. When she came up with My Daddy Was a Horn Player, it's true, because this deals with our father coming from Mississippi and being a jazz artist, etc. So she gets into her zone about, my daddy was a horn player, this is what's happening. And so when I heard it, I said, well, Cheryl, let me put some music behind that. So the guitarist, Eric Slaughter, and we put the music behind the My Daddy Was a Horn Player, and it came out really, really happening, I went back old-fashioned, the kind of music that we're doing is back in the heyday, Mm-hmm. And then the poem is more up to date, but it takes you to, his surroundings is from Mississippi, you'll enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, you certainly will. That's this thing really got me as soon as I put the needle on the record. It's called My Daddy Was a Horn Player from the Bosman Twins, featuring their sister Cheryl Walker right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
My daddy was a horn player, a jazz-playing, ballad-casting man. Draped in flatted fifths and fire, he dripped blue notes from Selmer's bell and granted wishes by placing them in notes, whispers. My daddy was a horn player. He snatched riffs from nature's calm and weaved magic with winds and reeds. He weaved magic with winds and reeds. My daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer. He carved chords out of atmospheric hum. And transformed them into ubiquitous tones. My daddy was a horn player. He cast creativity from baritonic bridges and molded music into healing herbs. He molded music into healing herbs. My daddy was a horn player, an enchanting sorcerer of song, a metamorphoser of melancholy moods. He reformulated air into masterful melodies and assembled whole notes and standard splendor. He reformulated air into masterful melodies and assembled whole notes in standard splendor. Whole notes in standard splendor. Whole notes in standard splendor. Whole notes. My daddy was a horn player, a master of rhythms, having put the bop in bebop. After he removed the curves to formulate straight ahead to give the alto its captive calm, he put the bop in bebop. After he removed the curves to formulate straight ahead to give the alto its captive calm, and he teased with tenor soothing cool. I said he teased with tenor soothing cool. He teased with tenor soothing cool and mesmerized observers with his saxophonic tricks. He mesmerized observers with his saxophonic tricks. My daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer, a black soil Mississippi musical architect. My daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer. My daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer. My daddy was a horn player. My daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer, a metamorphoser of melancholy moods. I say my daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer, a black soil Mississippi musical architect. My daddy was a horn player, a river-bending sound sayer, a river-bending sound sayer. My daddy was a horn player. 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 A black soil Mississippi musical architect. A black soil Mississippi musical architect. My daddy was a horn player. 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 A black soil Mississippi musical architect. A black soil Mississippi musical architect. He weaved magic with winds and reeds. He weaved magic with winds and reeds. He weaved magic with winds and reeds. My daddy was a horn player. 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 My daddy, my daddy, my daddy, my daddy, my daddy was a horn player. daddy was a horn player.
My daddy was a horn player from the Bosman Twins, today's guest on the Someone You Should Know podcast. I am actually remiss in my duties since you're from St. Louis, and I've lived in St. Louis for 22 years. One of the questions St. Louisans ask one another that I have not asked you yet is, what high school did you go to?
Beaumont High School.
Beaumont High.
Is there another?
It's funny because St. Louisans, for those of you who are not from St. Louis or spent a great deal of time in St. Louis, that is basically the common bond. You're from St. Louis. Oh, what high school did you go to? That's just the traditional question that
It is.
that St. Louisans ask one another. Or the
You
other
know
way-
why they do?
Why's that?
Because it tells actually a lot about an individual. Once you identify what high school, see, everything is sectioned off. So they know whether you came from north side, south side, east, west. Tells about your economical background, etc.
Social
Nobody's uptight about it, but yet everybody's proud of their culture, their heritage. But it identifies, what you are economically, what you did historically. If you're black, if you're white, you Hispanic, it gives a lot. Whatever, once you call that school, everybody can identify. So it's like, it's all right, man.
Very good. Now, in my 22 years of St. Louis, I lived over on the east side, lived over in Metro East, over in Collinsville. So, but the thing is, I know St. Louis like I know the back of my hand because, now, however, it's changed a little bit since you put the stadium in now, that the sports arena right there over by Union Station, that soccer arena. That
Soccer arena, yes.
I'm gonna have to check. I'm gonna have to check that out. Now, looking back at your career, you've got so many wonderful highlights: the Vienna Jazz Festival in Vienna, Austria, the Lavallee, I was going to say a Lavallee Jazz Festival in Paris. You have the Soho Festival in London. But one that's near and dear to my heart is one that I've been to many times, is the St. Louis Blues Festival. I've been there on several occasions. Fondest moments from playing these events, guys?
Oh, man, you see so many different musicians. And the blues crowd is a different crowd. They're so down to earth and just everybody's having a great time. They want to have a drink and they're partying. So, I mean, jazz is an excellent crowd, too. However, jazz is a little bit more sophisticated. I would say the difference between blues and jazz in the crowds would be just like playing checkers versus playing chess.
Oh, yeah.
And they're both good, great games. But, your audience is pretty much like that. The difference between baseball and golf.
Oh, very good.
Well,
go ahead, Dwight.
Rick, I love the different festivals and things that go on. There are a number of the Clayton Festival. There's which deals with food and music, and art, and those kind of things. You have Greek festivals. You have all kinds of things going on, but different kinds of festivals that happen that are surrounded with different kinds of music. St. Louis is not as doesn't have the total variety as a larger city would have, but for a city the size of St. Louis, it does have a variety of music, and we enjoy being part of whatever festival that we do. The Blues Festival is always a very fun festival. They've had different jazz festivals at different times. Last year, we played the Jazz at the Intersection.
Music at the Intersection.
Music at the Intersection. It's not jazz. I'm sorry. Music at the Intersection.
Where was that at, guys? Where in town was that?
It's in the
downtown area. Actually, it was actually in the Grand Center area.
Oh, okay.
And they're doing a lot to build that up. That's the largest festival in years. I mean, it was really something else. And we had housed our Chicago musicians that performed with us, and we had a hell of a show. And really, that's one of our big highlights of performing in St. Louis at the festivals here.
Yes,
I have like 55 different over 2-day period. And so they have national acts, and they also get in a lot of local acts as well, because they want to highlight St. Louis and in its variety of musicians in blues, R&B, jazz, and the likes.
All right, very good. A couple of minutes ago, we were talking about the fact that you were on tour with Fontella Bass, and you had the Watch Out for the Pie. The next question I have is something that we love to include. It is called Tales from the Road. And these are those infamous road stories of getting to a gig, something that happened at a gig, something that happened backstage at a gig. In this case here, you started talking about Fontella Bass and the pie incident. Is there another thing that's close to that one that you'd like to share with us where things didn't go exactly as planned, or those onstage antics that you have to be on guard for?
Yes, I can think of one specifically. We had just gotten to London, but we were on the outskirts of London. And then it's late. We got to the bed and breakfast, and the lady told us, the owner said, if you're not back by a certain time, if you don't have your key or something, you're just locked out. So, I heard it, but I didn't hear it because it didn't really mean anything, because I didn't think that would happen. So we left out rushing. I left the itinerary. So I didn't have the name of the hotel or anything with me. So I went to the restroom, but I was waiting to go to the restroom, and we were going to leave. And Peter Williams was in the restroom, and he took so much time, I don't know. And when he came out, I said, "Man, don't leave me. Let everybody. I'm getting ready to go in the restroom, but I'll be right out." And I came out, and everybody was gone. And I thought they were joking because they liked to tease. So I thought, well, they'll be back in a few minutes. They're just going to go down the street and try to get me upset. And then it was 30 minutes and they hadn't come back. So I did talk with the establishment, and they didn't speak English, and I couldn't. Oh, that was in London. No, we were in Germany somewhere. I don't know, but they didn't speak English where we were. I was trying to tell them, but they worked it out some kind of way. They went to the phone book and pulled out some places, and I finally remembered. When they showed me one name, I remembered that was the name of the place. Uh-huh. And so they got a taxi for me, who took me there, and it was pitch black, no lights on in the area. And then he pulled up, he said, "This has got to be it," because he went a couple places before there. And I said, "Oh, yeah, that's it." Finally. So then I was knocking on the door. Of course, the lady wouldn't come to the door. And I could hear them. They were partying, having a good time. And so they couldn't hear me. And finally, Fontella said she thought she heard something, and she came to the door and let me in. But man, do you know what it's like to be in another country somewhere? You don't speak the language. You don't know where you are. You left the itinerary, and you're lost on the first day. That could have been totally disastrous, but they teased me forever for that.
Well, I'll tell you a short one. We were playing in Paris, and we got there early. I mean, plenty of time. I guess we were there like 2.5 hours early, and we just jiving and having fun. It gets almost a half an hour too. And so I put my horn together and realized I left my reeds at the hotel. Well, now I'm sweating bullets because I had to run back to the hotel, which was not close, get my reeds and make it back. So I got back just in time to get on stage. Now I'm sweating, because it was summertime, Mm-hmm. And I made it. It was a good performance, but I was sweating bullets, man.
Always be prepared. Awesome. Yeah. Very good. How about some links to your music and your website and everything, guys? You have a wonderful website. Can you give us the information on how people can find you?
BosmanTwins.com or thebosmantwins.com. And Dwayne, you want to say something?
You can find us on Facebook as well, and it's LinkedIn and all the other major social medias out there. We're on everything.
All right, very good. What I'll do is I'll put those in the show notes. So if anyone's listening right now and would like to find out more information, or maybe even book these guys, the way to do it is just take the show notes there. What's on the agenda for 2023, guys?
Well, we're back in Chicago right now. We just finished doing a host of other engagements, and we're back in Chicago February the 18th.
Oh, wonderful.
So at Winter's Jazz Club, and we have a wonderful, excellent time at Winter's Jazz Club. Our lineup, the musicians are performing with us. We have Rick Heath on drums, Maureen Rosenberg on acoustic bass, and Kevin Fort on acoustic piano. So on this occasion, we're also going to attempt to do a couple of electronic tunes, that are already out there, but they're electronic, and we're going to attempt to do them acoustically and see how well we can progress on that. We have electrified audiences. We've been getting standing ovations, and it's been a pleasure. And they've been bringing us in and out of Winters Jazz Club. Last few years. After the pandemic, we started back in October, and we've been full force in and out of Chicago.
Rick, we performed to sold out audiences there at Winters Jazz Club. So that's always a wonderful place to perform. And I think we look forward to getting back to Winters, but also I think Chicago looks forward to the Boseman Twins returning to Winters Jazz Club.
We're definitely going to have to make our way over there too. We're not far from Chicago, just a stone's throw away. But with the weather, you never know. Days like today, you never know. Final song we're going to play is Many Moons. What's the backstory on Many Moons?
Well, Many Moons, I just wanted to do a kind of a modal. I came up with a modal kind of feel. And when I started listening to the overtones on it, especially towards the end, I was able to get into this. If you just think about the moonal kind of things, the different moons that are out here. Mm-hmm. And so that came the name of the tune. And when we close out on the very end, it's kind of like takes you like that, Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a real nice tune, but got a chance to get into a modal groove.
There you go. Dwight, what's your thoughts on this one?
I just love the, it's as simple to me as, you go back to the American Bandstand and they would say, Dick Clark would ask you how you rate a record. And they say, well, I gave it an 85 or I gave it a 90. And he said, well, why did you like it? And he said, because it had a good beat. And I'll leave it at that because it has good beat.
Very good. Oh, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been an absolute treat and a nice chance for me to kind of reminisce about St. Louis a little bit there because I spent 22 years there, walked up and down those streets, ate all the food, and just loved the music of the city. The vibe of the music of the city is just so incredible. If you ever get a chance to go to St. Louis, by all means, do so. Go check out a Cardinal game. Of course, go at Anheuser-Busch, but you got to check out the St. Louis music scene because it is absolutely phenomenal. And you've got two musicians like this, brothers who are just absolutely phenomenal jazz musicians playing together, absolute treasures of the city, the Bosman Twins. Guys, I thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you, Rick. Can I mention something real quick?
Certainly, go ahead.
Because you mentioned about what's going on in St. Louis. You can catch us at Joe's Cafe, February 23rd. So that's right after we come back from Chicago. And it's very historic because it's about the Moose Lounge in which we used to play years ago. We got quite a notoriety, which opened the doors for us playing over in Europe. And
how many years we played?
This is called the Moose Reloaded. We have done part 1, part 2, part 3, and this is part 4. Wonderful. February 23rd.
Rick, we performed at the Moose Lounge for 17 years, Mm-hmm. And that was a mainstay for us in North St. Louis. And it was the longest running jazz club for many years. And so the Moose Reloaded is identifying with the kinds of things that we did when we were at the Moose. And so it's always a lot of fun. And we look forward to that. Thank you for having us on your show because it's been a pleasure, man. And we have to get together.
Oh, certainly. Definitely.
Next time, Anthony, someone you should know.
It's the Bosman Twins, someone you got to know. And guys, I thank you so very much. Next time I come to town, we're going to go out and eat, okay?
Thank you, Rick.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.